It got our ass handed to us last week. Brad Allen. I've put up 4 selections, 4 losers. It's actually hard to do sometimes, but it happens, man. It does happen. At least you're the Patriots in the first half, so we'll leave that behind us, mate, and move quickly on to week 11. And let's start. The Ravens, Steelers, one of the games of the week. I think Steelers getting 3 plus money, 2.04. Total is a high enough one, 48.5. Selection I like in this one. Chasing steam a small bit because this guy, the jury's not out on this guy. When Russell Wilson is throwing the ball, George Pickens is a beast to those deep balls, those long arcing Russell Wilson throws. You know, Russell Wilson might only complete half his passes, but they're big ones at the moment, Brad. And, you know, with Pickens, his average yards have jumped from 60.5 a game to 92 a game with Wilson behind the wheel. And the Ravens secondary are not good. I think the their defense coordinator, Zach Orr, is getting away with stuff because this Ravens offense is so good. And yeah, last week again, they could not cover Jamar Chase. He got 264 yards, and then week before, Courtland Sutton 122 yards. They moved to more of a too high safety kind of setup. Did not make a difference. They gave up a truckload. And I like Pickens. He might only get 3 or 4 catches, Brad, but I think he gets 65 yards, mate. Any thoughts in this game in general, mate, before we move on?
No, you could definitely see a shootout, couldn't you, given the Ravens are like best offense in the league, but they stop the run and cannot stop the pass. So, the total's been bet up from like 46 on open to 48 and a half now. So, shootout expected. But Judah, again, our old pal, had the stat about like Russ on deep balls is like over 1 EPA per play, and even in his best season in Seattle, I think he was at like 0.7 EPA on deep throws. So he's overperforming a little bit. So at some point he's going to not hit against this Ravens defense that's been given up all year.
It's a good spot, 100%. Yeah, I kind of given up on Russ, but I think what he's being asked to do in this Arthur Smith offense generally suits him, and obviously getting Mike Williams over on the other side from George Pickens, they're players that just suit Russ, I would suggest. So yeah, Pickens over 64.5 receiving yards, 175 at matchbook.com. Actually, that's actually a bit bigger. It's 178. I'll change that up in a while. It was 175 this morning, so get a small bit of better price. All right, Brad, let's move on. The Browns at the Saints. Browns off their bye week. They're a 1-point favorite. You can back them on the money line straight up at 192, which we're going to do, 43.5. Saints got their bit of the new coach bounce last week, but it's not going to mask certain deficiency. You like the Brownies there?
Yes, I do. So the part of the reason is the biggest false final last week was Saints Falcons. Obviously, Saints won the game. Everyone saw the interim head coach sort of going nuts on the sideline. But the adjusted scores was Falcons 27, Saints 19. So part of that was the success rate. Falcons 51% success rate against 37% for the Saints, but they missed 3 field goals. The Falcons, one of them was blocked, and then obviously you look at the way the Saints scored their points. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 3 catches, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, just hitting deep balls. So nothing sustainable there. And now they're going against, I would say, a horrific matchup. One is on the defensive line. You've got Myles Garrett and co. And you have a Saints team which is 31st in pressure rate allowed, and the tackles against Garrett is a mismatch. And then on the outside, the way the Browns like to play is man coverage and rush 4. Assume Garrett will get home, which he probably will, as discussed. And then so you're going to have man coverage on these receivers, which is probably the worst receiving core in the league. Obviously, Olave and Shaheed are out, but now like MVS is one. The surname so there is Tipton and Jackson. I don't know who they are. I can sign into my PFF to find out who they are and what their grades are, but like they're replacement level receivers. So they're not going to get open. They can't block. So I don't know. So one way to do it is Saints under 21.5. Like if you just want to do that team total under and assume they're not going to hit those like fluky-ish big players. Or you can do Browns money line as well, which I think is solid. Have some faith in Jameis in his homecoming, but the Saints defense does nothing well. 26th ranked defensive line, according to our pal Brandon Thorne. They give up the third most 20-yard completion. So Jameis should get some deep bombs. And then they're also giving up 5.2 yards a carry and 145 rush yards a game. So they do nothing well. So, I think Browns' money line is good. I think Saints team total under is good as well.
I like the angle. I'm like playing Elijah Moore here over 34.5 receiving yards out of the slot. Last day against the Chargers, he had 9 targets. He only actually turned that into 3 catches of 28 yards. But actually, I'm pretty sure that nearly all 3 of Jameis's interceptions were targets for Elijah Moore down the field. And honestly, if you got one of them, he was away for Slate. So I'm banking on a bit of positive regression here for Elijah Moore at over 34.5 receiving yards at 173. 2 full games alongside Jameis. Elijah Moore has seen 25% target share, just under 25%, and just under 28% air yard share, while he's averaging 5.5 down the field targets, which is more than 10 yards per game. That's how they define. So, yeah. Look, a secondary in the Saints too that's pretty banged up, and it's allowed the second most receiving yards per game to slot receivers this season. So also playing on the ladder, mate, 50 plus receiving yards, 13th 8 or 2.63 as well. Bet builder, we might as well just stay with that for a second. The bet builder we like in this one, so close again last week. So we're putting in 4 legs of bet builder. The third one left us down was Cade Otton. I think he was 15 yards short. Plenty of targets again. That happens. But this one that we like is the Browns to win the game. As Brad made the case, I put in Elijah Moore, 40 plus receiving yards, and Cedric Tillman, 60 plus receiving yards, who's been a great replacement for Mari Cooper there. And Jameis Winston, famous Jameis against the Saints secondary. We may get more good Jameis than bad Jameis this week. It's the dicey roll, 225 plus passing yards, and that pays 7-1 or 8.0 on matchbook.com. Speaking of which, those guys at matchbook.com, if you're backing those, if you're having a tenner on that, you're getting 10 quid back in free bets, just like last week. So you're not actually losing any money there. So you can keep playing with this, and we will click one. I can promise you that. But also with Matchbook, they have a full NFL Bet Builder product this season, which they had in the last season, which you can also bet these in singles as well. To populate, just click one selection, such as Elijah Moore, 50 plus receiving yards at 263, and that will populate your price and sign up offer too with these Matchbook guys. 50, bet 50, get 50, and use the bonus code POD50, POD50 when signing up. Full terms and conditions can be found on the promotions tab at matchbook.com. Brad, one of the other earlier games, Rams coming off a tough loss to Miami on Monday night. They're in New England. They're laying 4.5. 43 is the total. You know, you look at this in a completely ordinary fashion and say they're off Monday night cross country, but you like the Rams there laying 4.5.
Yeah, I just think they're the much better team. So we've spoken before about the Rams with all their weapons on the field, like Nakua, Kupp, Kyron Williams, Stafford, and how they're like basically 0.24 EPA per play. So like one of the best offenses in the league, essentially. And last week they got 2 offensive linemen back. So I bet them against Miami, and I watched that game quite closely. I bet the team total over, lost it all, but they had the 2 new linemen back, and I think they were clearly a bit rusty. So like Jonah Jackson was snapping it over Stafford's heads, like they got in field goal range, and then just snap it over his head. He's fumbling the ball, and I think they kicked 5 field goals in the end. It was just kind of sloppiness. Every time they got going, there was a false start, a holding penalty. But you can see the bones of the offense is there, and I would also say that the Dolphins, they got the pressure. They were clearly sort of beating the Rams offensive line, which the Patriots aren't going to do. 27th in Brandon Thorne's defensive line rankings. And then number 2, they also practice against the motion that the Rams run the entire time. So I don't think the Patriots are going to do that. And so I think basically that's along that same. The Rams are going to get theirs. And then the other side of the ball, we have our old pals, the Patriots, with the 31st in pressure rating allowed. They've got the 32nd ranked offensive line. And this is one of Brandon Thorne's big mismatches, the Rams getting home against his Patriots offensive line. So all told, again, if you just look at the the adjusted scores of this Rams-Patriots game, Rams-Dolphins game, Rams actually won the game because they did move the ball well until they got into the 20s and started doing stupid shit. So I think it's a bit of a false final, which is why we're getting 4.5. And now I think it should be 6 or so. And
don't be fooled by the Patriots' defensive performance last week either, because that Bears offense was an absolute disgrace.
And wind. Like there was 15, 20, 25 mile an hour winds in that game. And like they fired the offensive coordinator, they quit on the team. DJ Moore's saying like, I want to say he hasn't lost the locker room yet. They're a joke. So I just think it's just, again, different class.
I'm going to briefly touch on those guys in a minute. Don't have a selection, but I have a couple of underleans with the Bears, which won't surprise anyone. Just before we get into the later games, if you are listening there, watching us, please give us a favorable review on your preferred podcast app. If you're listening, or also we're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe button. We started slow there, but that's okay. We do appreciate any of those interactions, any comments as well, and ratings. It gets our content out to a wider audience. Very much appreciated. Player prop I like in the Falcons and the Broncos. Broncos getting a good bit of money here all week. It was almost a pick on the open, but they're -2 now. 44 is the total. And a guy that is getting a lot of looks from a vastly improved Bo Nix is Courtland Sutton, and 60+ receiving yards at 2.05. In his last 3 games, he's averaged 10 targets and he's getting 97.3 yards, even against a pretty good Chiefs defense last week. One of those is a bit of a big chunk play, but that's okay too. Nix is loving him. He's getting a 41% first read share from Bo Nix, which is quite impressive. And also the Broncos just don't have any other threats at all. They tried to work in the likes of Marvin Mims and these kind of guys, but it just does not work. So Nix is zeroing in on Courtland Sutton on the season. 23.2% target share, 40.8% air yard share. And going against a Falcons secondary, which is not terrific. It's not the worst in the league, but it certainly ain't the best. Any thoughts on that one, man?
I like the Broncos to score their points, or move the ball as well. Like it does, look week on week, they're giving Bo Nix more chance to pass it. They're going a bit quicker. The Falcons get 0 pressure, so should have these shots down the field. So I like it.
Moving on to Sunday night game, Bengals. At the Chargers, Bengals getting 1.5. 48 is the total, one of the higher totals for a Chargers game all year, I would suggest. But I wonder with this Chargers defense, Brad, if we look back at the last couple of weeks, the quarterbacks they've played, none of them being as good as Joe Burrow, right? And you're liking the Bengals team total over 23.5.
Yeah, that's the angle right there. The Chargers, they look good by points allowed, by defensive DVOA. But they have faced 2 teams so far in the top 19 in offensive DVOA. They lost both of those games. They haven't faced a single top 10 pass offense. And obviously, in comes Joe Burrow and Mr. Chase, who are playing. They're a top 5 offense. And that's pretty much it. Like it's kind of one of the, I think, long-term angles is fade a defense which has faced an easy schedule. It seems like the market doesn't adjust that enough. We saw that with the Broncos a couple of weeks ago. Like they were by defensive EPA, they were one of the best defenses in the last 10 years. They go to Baltimore and they give up 47 or whatever it was because good offense beats good defense, basically.
Yeah, no, fully agree with you, man. I think there's going to be a lot of money coming from the Chargers, and it already has started this week. And I get it to a point, but you have to look back at who they've played and just watch what the Bengals offense can do. And they've had to do because that defense is no good. Just one player prop on the Chargers side on this one that I like. This guy is not flash in any way. The tight end, Will Dissly, 35+ receiving yards. You can back at 196 at matchbook.com. I think that the script normally with the Chargers is to, run the ball, time of possession, and they will try that here. But I think they're going to have to play some element of keep up because this Bengals offense, as you predicted, Brad, should get theirs in this one. So Dissly on the season is second on the team in targets. Now that's not saying a whole lot when you've got Ladd McConkey and Quinton Williams and Josh Palmer, not exactly alpha wide receivers. But the way this Chargers offense works, similar to the Ravens in previous years with Greg Roman as coordinator, it is very tight end friendly. And even last week, I saw a tweet from Lindsay Rhodes on the first read share. he was third in the whole league, I think, behind even the likes of even ahead of Cortland Sutton that we mentioned there. 42% first read share and 33% of the targets last weekend. The Bengals, their defense is so bad. They're the last couple of weeks are playing with the 2 high safety, look over 50%. So that's generally that kind of team is always the underneath stuff, the tight end, and this is where Will Dissly, who will not be in any way flash, will get probably 5 receptions, 40 yards. That's kind of my way of looking at this. So yeah, Will Dissly 35 plus receiving yards. Before we get to recap, mate, let's just touch on 1 or 2 more games, right? So I mentioned the Packers and Bears, you kind of touched on it. Change of offense coordinator, Shane Waldron, and he's going to Thomas Brown, who, if we look back to last year with the Panthers, took over from Frank Reich, and it just doesn't work. He's from the Sean McVay coaching tree, but I think it's going to be heavy DeAndre Swift there, Roshan Johnson, or whoever is in the Bears backfield. I don't really understand where the Bears' money is coming from. There was 6.5 early in the week. It's down to 5 now. Like the Packers' defense is actually quite decent. I can't see where Williams is getting success here because he hasn't looked good. There's a lot wrong there that I don't think one offensive coordinator is going to change. So I'd be looking at building almost unders with Caleb under, touchdown passes and maybe rush attempts over on Swift or whatever else. But I don't know if you've any steer on this one, man.
No, I think the money's just come just because of the number, isn't it? Like it was 6.5 at home for a division game. I think that was just people going, that's too much. Like Packers off a bye I think that's big, given LaFleur, how good he's at game planning. And agreed, they've looked, I think some of it is probably assuming a dead cat bounce as well. Like they haven't scored a touchdown in 2 games, the Bears. So there's some of it is like new offensive coordinator. This has to get better. It cannot get worse. Like obviously Caleb is still talented. He was drafted number 1 and has had some good games. So I'm probably like you. If I was forced to bet, I would go Packers just because of the rest and how bad the Bears look. But yeah, not strong.
Game of the week, mate. Before we get the bet recap and best bets, is it the game of the week? I think it is the game of the week. Patrick Mahomes, look, I think this has been mentioned ad nauseum as an underdog. You wouldn't go broke backing him as an underdog. There are rare occasions, but look at the playoffs last year. We were definitely on 1 or 2 of those, and at the Super Bowl level, obviously, as well, as an underdog there. They're getting 2 points in Buffalo. 46 is the total. There's holes in both teams, Brad, though, isn't there? You can kind of go around the fences on this, but Mahomes is a dog, 2.16, big price.
I think that's it. Is there further analysis needed? Like the number in the market is driven by models, right? And it's based on this season. They shouldn't, the Chiefs shouldn't be a 9-win team because they win every game by 2 points, so they should have lost 2 games or whatever there is. Yeah. But it's Patrick Mahomes. He will win the game. He will do enough to win the game. It's like his running. They've got that joke. Like his 40 time is 0.1 quicker than the guy chasing him. He always just gets away. But they do the same thing with football games. They just win by 3 points because that's all they need to do. So I think it is a repeatable skill, and it's not something that's going to be in your model based on EPA and success rate and stuff. So yeah, bet the Chiefs, walk the dog.
I think it'll be an very evenly bet contest, though. I think there's definitely a lot of public money around for Buffalo too, and Josh Allen, and the narrative that almost like there's a desperation for the Bills. If they do want to somehow get the 1 seed in the AFC, they have to win this game. But I think, realistically, the Chiefs probably haven't got it wrapped up in terms of even their schedule as well. So, yeah, all right. Good game to watch, hopefully. Bet recap time, mate. Let's start from the top. I like George Pickens over 64.5 receiving yards, 175. Brad likes the Browns money line of 192. I like Elijah Moore over 34.5 receiving yards, 173, and played up the ladder to 50 plus receiving yards, 263. Brad likes the Rams minus 4.5. Cortland Sutton, Broncos only wide receiver option, 60 plus receiving yards, 2.05 against still relatively porous Falcons defense. Brad loves the Bengals team total over 23.5 on Sunday Night Football. Same game. I like the rumbling, jumbling hunker himself, Will Dissly, 35 plus receiving yards at 196. What's the best bet of all those, man?
I think it is the Browns. I think we've got nice edges both sides of the ball.
Okay. My best bet is going to be Cortland Sutton, 60 plus receiving yards, plus money 2.05. And we also have the bet builder we mentioned there as well. Just scroll back if you're listening. It's and the Browns and the Saints game will also be in the Telegram group as well. All right, Brad, good man, good stuff. We'll hopefully have a better week this week. Thanks for listening today. Chat to you next week. Best of luck with your bets, most importantly. Take care.